Okay, so scaling a business, it's the dream, right?
Yeah.
But lately, it seems like everyone's got that growth hacking magic solution,
Yeah.
and we all know how those go. So today, we're skipping the buzzwords and really diving into what it takes to scale sustainably.
Right.
We're taking a deep dive into Coruscant Technology's growth and scaling downfalls.
Okay.
And spoiler alert, it's not all hockey stick graphs and overnight success stories.
Definitely not.
Are you ready to get into it?
Let's do it. I think, anyone who's seen even a little bit of the business world knows those hyped up solutions are never the whole story.
Absolutely, and that's why I love this article. It points out something that seems so obvious, but so easy to forget.
Mm-hmm.
Those limitations outside a company's control, they even have this military analogy. No battle plan survives contact with the enemy.
Right, right. It's a little dramatic, but it really emphasizes the point.
Yeah.
You can have the absolute best product, a fantastic team, all the funding in the world, but there are external things that can still derail everything.
Oh, absolutely. Think about the whole cryptocurrency boom a while back.
Right.
Some companies were in the absolute perfect position to ride that wave, and then regulations changed.
Exactly. Or a bigger competitor steps in, or you get a global pandemic, who knows? And then you've got the constantly advancing technology landscape to contend with.
So it's not just about having a great product.
No.
You need to be prepared for anything.
You have to be, yeah. You have to analyze the bigger picture, anticipate problems, and have backup plans. That's what this article really emphasizes.
Which leads into another point they make about managing expectations. And at first I thought, well, yeah, that's just being realistic, but it's more than that, right?
Oh, yeah. It goes way deeper than just setting achievable goals, although that's obviously important.
Right.
It's about actively managing what everyone involved is expecting, your team, investors, customers even. Because overpromising, especially early on, can really hurt you, even if you eventually get everything done. It damages trust.
That makes
It
sense.
can create a whole bunch of problems down the road.
Okay, so let's say you're launching a new product. You're excited, you're promising your investors amazing results.
Yeah.
6 months later, you've only hit half your goals. Not because the product's bad, but you maybe underestimated how long marketing would take or developing a feature.
And that's exactly why this is so important. It's all about setting realistic milestones, being upfront about potential obstacles, and constantly communicating, good or bad, with everyone involved.
This is really making me think about all those early promises now.
Right.
Easy to get caught up in the moment.
Yeah.
But moving on a bit, the article also goes into the internal stuff, like processes. And I have to admit, my first thought was, hold on, am I going to be rewriting our company handbook every other month?
Well, I don't think you need to put your HR department on speed dial, but adaptable processes are definitely important. The article's right on that.
Okay.
Think of it more like upgrading your software.
Right.
You're not starting over completely every time,
Yeah.
but the system has to be able to handle more, as you grow.
Right.
More users, more data.
So are we supposed to just plan for every possible way things could go? Because that just seems impossible.
Yeah. No, it's not about predicting the future. It's more about making sure you've got flexibility from the beginning.
Okay.
The article uses the word agile,
Right.
designing processes that can change and adapt quickly when you need them to.
Okay. Agile. I hear that word everywhere,
Yeah.
but I'm not a software developer, so.
What's that actually look like in a business?
It's more of a mindset than any specific tools or anything like that.
Okay.
Instead of sticking to the plan even when it's not working, you're always getting feedback, making changes, trying to adjust things. Like, think about Amazon. They're always experimenting. New features, new delivery options, even new types of products.
Yeah, that's true.
That's agility in action. So it's less about knowing everything up front and more about being ready to change.
Yeah, exactly. And the article makes a good point about how a company culture that's really rigid can actually make it harder to scale.
Really?
If you aren't willing to try new things, if you aren't learning from your mistakes, if you aren't constantly evolving, it won't matter how great your product is.
Yeah.
You'll hit a wall eventually. And speaking of evolving, the article ties this back to communication.
Okay.
When you're scaling, communication can't just be one-sided. It can't just be from the top down.
Right. You can't just have a bigger company party and call it a communication strategy.
Exactly.
So what's the alternative? How do you keep everyone informed when you have teams all over the place, maybe even in different countries?
That's where this whole feedback loop idea comes in. Remember we were talking about being realistic with goals?
Yeah.
This is also about creating an environment where people feel like they can give feedback, it's listened to, and then something's actually done with it.
So more than just an old suggestion box.
Definitely, yeah. Think regular meetings where teams talk about what went well, what didn't, what they learned.
Right.
Think dedicated places for people to share ideas. Could be online, could be something else. The most important thing is that leaders are showing they value the feedback, that they're using it to make things better.
So leading by example.
Exactly. It goes right back to building that company culture that's all about adapting and being agile.
Yeah.
When people feel heard, they're more engaged, they're more motivated, they're more invested.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, that's what drives sustainable growth.
It's amazing how much of an impact communication has, especially when you're scaling. But it all goes back to that sustainable growth idea, right?
Yeah.
That's something else Coruzant talks about. It's not just about growing fast. It's about growing the right way.
Absolutely. It's easy to get caught up in chasing those big numbers.
Yeah.
Users, revenue, all that. But if you have to sacrifice quality, or your team's getting burned out, or you're compromising what you believe in, that kind of growth isn't going to last.
It's like, I don't know, building a skyscraper on a foundation that's meant for a tiny house.
Right, exactly. Yeah. You might get a little bit of the way there.
Yeah.
And that's what happens a lot, I think, when companies focus too much on growing super fast. They forget about the internal stuff, the foundation.
Like what we were talking about, the process is communication.
Yeah, building a culture where feedback is important. They might see some quick growth, but then you start to see the problems.
The product isn't as good. Employees leave. It's hard to adapt.
Exactly.
So then how do you find that balance? Growing quickly, but in a way that makes sense for the long term.
Well, the article makes this point that I don't think gets enough attention. It's not just about measuring how much you're growing.
It's not.
No, it's about understanding what's making you grow.
Oh, okay.
Are you getting new customers in a way that you can repeat, that you can scale?
Right.
Are those customers sticking around? And are you doing all this and still making money, still keeping your company culture good?
Those are really good questions. So it's not just about the numbers, it's about what's behind them.
Yes. You have to dig deeper. Figure out the why, not just the what.
Why behind the what? Okay.
And it goes back to those feedback loops we were talking about. You have to analyze how you're growing, what's working, what's not working.
Yeah.
Be willing to adjust your strategy. Because the companies that are really good at scaling, they're the ones who are always learning, always getting better.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
This has been such a great deep dive. So much good advice for anyone who wants to grow their business the right way.
I agree.
If you had to pick just one thing for our listeners to remember, what would it be?
I think it would be that building a business that can scale, it's not just about chasing bigger and bigger numbers. It's about building that strong foundation, making sure you can adapt, making sure communication is clear, building a culture where feedback is valued. That's how you deal with the challenges and the opportunities that come with growing a successful business.
Build that foundation and you can weather anything. That's great advice. And for our listeners, if you want to learn more, definitely check out Coruzant Technologies. Yeah. Their article is called Growth and Scaling Downfalls. It's full of insights, really practical advice to help take your business further. And with that, we're wrapping up this deep dive. Until next time, keep learning and keep growing.